Hi, what I think I'll show you today is how I tend to draw a single point perspective. Teaching perspective is quite easy if you start at 2 point, and on the slide sets that you'll find up on Moodle, then you will see how to do that, and it is relatively easy, and you can scale it reasonably well from one corner point. Single point offers a problem in that it's difficult to try and estimate depth in a scale that works and looks right. And this method that I'm going to show you now is the one that I've used, and it really does work very well, in that we will draw the way that the building is laid out, and here you can see that I have drawn out a little simple room. I've made it 2.5 meters by 5 meters deep. I put a door in there and a couple of windows. Now also you'll see here I've drawn a grid to scale of 500 millimeters. Now this allows me to do several things in the preparation and also in the drawing of the perspective itself. Now if I lay a scale over the top of this, you'll see that it's 1 to 50, and there it is. There's the scale, and I put the grid up at 500 mil, so each one of those squares represents 500 mil, which means I can now start to lay out some of the rooms in here. As you can see, these two windows more or less fit onto the grid, but the door is just over the top of it, and that's useful. I've drawn a section through here, and that's the section over here that I've drawn just to get some height. 2.3 meters high, and then 900 and a meter for the window itself, and just to get that into in the right vein so I can draw the perspective to scale. Now when we talk about scale as far as a single point perspective is concerned, it is this line here that is the scale that's going to work correctly. In other words, along this line here, then scale is correct. Anything else as you go through here, then it will reduce because of the perspective. So what I've done is here I've outlined that portion of the room there, and you can see it is again to the right scale. And if I drop this over the top of it, 2.5 meters by 2.3 meters high. So I've outlined that in, and I've chosen the eyeball line at about 1.5 meters. That's about the right distance to get your eye in the right vein so that you can get the perspective to work correctly. You draw a little dotted line across that, and for instance sake on this one I've chosen dead center onto the room, and I've put a little dot there. And then from that little dot you draw each one of these lines in to get the 4 corners of the building, from the ceiling and for the floor, going down into the focal point. Now up to that point I don't know how deep this room is in perspective, and that's where the skill is in putting in the correct scale down the bottom here. And so as you can see I've drawn again in the 500 millimeter start of the grid, and for each one of those grid points there and there, which is there and there, I've actually joined up to the focal point, and I've created all the lines going in. Now what I need to do is to draw in the way that the geometry for this is going to work. So if I take a pencil or a pen, and it's always the same, you can never find one when you want one, but there it is. If I take in a square here and I draw in a square there like that quite easily, if I draw the diagonals together here and extend that diagonal down there, the next line down here, and if I draw that line across there, then you'll reproduce the square, because the diagonal to diagonal to diagonal will make the square all the way along. I could actually do it on this same line if I wanted to, by taking the half point of that line and then drawing up that line to there, and you'll see that the geometry says that will then line up, so I can check things if I want to. But for the purposes of this, I'm going to take the diagonal all the way across at 45 degrees. And what I've done is I've had to take that first line there and reproduce it there. There is no scale, nothing you can do other than you take an eyeball guesstimate of where it should be and make it look right. Once you've done that, you can join that corner to that corner and extend it all the way across. Then each of the lines it crosses that you've drawn in previously will be the start of one of the horizontal lines going across. That will make the grid up. Then all you do is you count the number of lines, and here I said number 1, which is the view line, which is also scale line. Then numbered them all the way down to number 11. And again, I've done that all the way down here to number 11, and I've drawn that across there from the 2 lines I drew previously to the focal point. That is the end of the room, which is there. And that is the right scale length. Now I can come in, I can count the numbers along to put that one here as a number 6 there, and then that one there also, and then I can use the height there. I can take that across to the scale point over here, and then I can use that to the focal point to get the top of the window, and the same again for that. Draw it across there to get the sill, get the focal point in, and I can draw the window in. The door is much the same because it's the same height, and so I can do exactly the same thing. Draw in the door at the right, and as you can see here now, it's just a touch over grid number 8, or just under grid number 8, and just under grid number 10 to get the right scale. Again, I've done that again there, and I can then draw that in nicely. And I've got then all the room laid out to perspective, and I've got the right depth in that coincides with the thin, long room that I've chosen. What I'm going to do here is, because that scale of 1 to 50 is a touch small, then I have been using this one here, which I'm outlining at the moment. I'm going to draw this in here. Again, I'm going to draw the line across here to get the right sort of square. I'll draw the diagonals across here. Each one of those will represent all the way down there the rest of the squares, and I'll draw it in. I've used the section here that I will outline again, and this is all part of some slides I'm making up for the single point perspective, but I thought I'd make a movie of it. Outline this in yellow just to make the room look right, and then all I've got to do is to join things up, and there you can see I'm just joining up the corners of the room, nice and easy, and then use that to draw a line across there. So I've got the 4 corners of the room coming in. I've drawn that one there, and it really is a guesstimate, and so what I'll do is I will draw that across there like that, and then all I got to do is draw that across there like that, and more or less a straight line, and then each one of these will represent the horizontal, and you can see as these reduce, so does the section line coming through here. And then I do that one again, and I must use this one here, like that across there like that. Then that one there would be around about there, about there, about there, and about there. And I wanted 11, didn't I? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and I want one more. Wouldn't you believe it? And there it is. That's the back of the wall, and then all I've got to do is to draw that up there like that. Oh no, that's better. There you go. Join those across there, and that's the back of the room. And I can do some rubbing out to make this work, and I can do everything else. I can draw in the window there because I've already drawn it there. All I've got to do is take that across onto about there for the top of the door, and let's put that over this side, and then draw that down here somewhere, and then let's have a look at that and do that, and just draw a simple flesh line there. And then if I remember rightly, we're looking at just under 8 and just under 10. Well, there's 8, and so the door comes up there as a vertical, and under 10, which is that line there, and just under there, and that's the door coming in. And because I've already drawn in that line there, that's the outline of the door. And that is how I get single point perspective, using the scale at the viewpoint to set everything up. using the grid at the top here, making those lines then go down to the focal point, and then setting up the eye line grid first, and then using the diagonal as simple geometry to set up the rest of the lines and see how they reduce down to get the right length. And that is quite a nice way of getting reasonable scale into a single point perspective. And once you've done that a couple of times, you don't need to scale things off. You just set the room out, do all the bits and pieces freehand, and it's an aid to making sure that you get the right depth to that room there. The layout you can see here is a simple thing I'm doing at the moment, trying to understand how this looks like a normal piece of drawing paper on with all the sellotape down the sides. I put notes down here, and then over this side, as you can see, I will put on a little north point, some information about the company, which is me, C Construction, CPD, and then perspective lesson perspective lesson 1 point, and then PER, which is the number, and then 01, and this one will be 02, and I'll just copy that across onto here. Be careful, I've used some felt tip pens here just to highlight things out, and it's bled through. This is just 80-gram paper that I use in my print machine, and you can see I had this piece under here, and the yellow has come through and bled quite badly. But hey ho, it's just for putting up together for you to see how to do single point perspective, getting it reasonably to scale, getting in the right perspective and the right depth to your perspective, just using some simple rules. Hope you find that good. Cheers.